Welcome to Conversations with Kate, the podcast where we delve into the stories, ideas, and insights that shape our lives. Join me as we engage in thoughtful discussions with fascinating guests from all walks of life. Get ready to listen, learn, and connect. All right, let's kick things off with a bit of history, shall we? Propaganda, for better or worse, has been around forever. I mean, we're talking ancient civilizations like Darius the Fair of Persia chiseling his own version of events into stone. Imagine your Instagram captions lasting thousands of years. No pressure, right?
Right. But back then, the medium really limited the message. Inscribed stones and dramatic speeches were effective, but they were also slow. Once the printing press came along, though, everything changed. Suddenly you had this explosion of pamphlets, books and, propaganda campaigns tailored for mass audiences. It shaped revolutions and religious movements. Think Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not like things slowed down. Fast forward to the 20th century, and propaganda teams were basically blockbuster production studios, pumping out films, posters, and radio broadcasts. I mean, did you know Joseph Goebbels had a department just for overseeing propaganda in Nazi Germany? It's both fascinating and horrifying.
Horrifying, but effective in how it coordinated with emerging technologies. Each leap in communication technology, whether radio or cinema, expanded the reach and emotional power of messaging. But let's fast forward again. The real game changer, social media.
Yeah, social media, where algorithms decide not just what we see, but how we feel about it. And it's like they're designed to amplify emotional, sensational content, right?
Exactly. The intrinsic design of platforms like Facebook and Twitter is to prioritize engagement. And what's engaging? Emotional content, controversial, divisive. It grabs attention, it provokes. But here's where things get even more interesting. The echo chambers.
Oh yes, the good old echo chambers. You like one post about, organic kale, and suddenly your feed's 90% kale can save the world. It feels like you're surrounded by like-minded people, but really you're just sort of being boxed in.
That illusion of agreement is precisely what makes it so powerful and dangerous. It's not just kale, obviously. It's political ideologies, conspiracy theories, you name it. The platforms create this feedback loop, reinforcing pre-existing beliefs. And propagandists take advantage of that vulnerability.
But wait, let's not forget the decentralization aspect. Anyone, anywhere, can create these narratives now. It's not just states or big organizations. It's anyone with an internet connection and a clever meme strategy.
Absolutely. That decentralization muddies the waters, making it harder to trace the source of manipulation. What might seem like a grassroots narrative can sometimes be orchestrated by a larger hidden entity, and the tools for controlling or amplifying these messages, complex algorithms that are largely opaque to the average user.
So, in a way, social media isn't just the new frontier for propaganda. It's like the whole battlefield. Its architecture practically invites manipulation. And really, once something goes viral, the damage is done. You can't unviral it, right?
Precisely. The speed and reach of information today make it nearly impossible for corrections or fact checks to keep pace. And remember, these platforms thrive on engagement metrics. Their business model aligns far too neatly with the goals of propagandists. It's a systemic problem that amplifies the challenge of distinguishing truth from manipulation.
And speaking of manipulation, we've got to talk about Cambridge Analytica. We've all heard the name, but what's the real story here? They made some bold claims, like using psychographics to influence voters in both the 2016 US election and Brexit campaigns. But seriously, what even is psychographics? It almost sounds like one of those expensive personality tests.
It's essentially about predicting personality traits like openness, conscientiousness, extroversion from data. Think Facebook likes, for example. Then theoretically you'd tailor messages to resonate with individual psychological profiles. Sounds fancy, but the technology, not as magical as it's made out to be.
Wait, you're saying they hyped it up? That's shocking. Said no one ever. But it gets sketchier, doesn't it? Data wasn't exactly freely offered by Facebook users, was it?
Not exactly. It was harvested through an app called This Is Your Digital Life. It was disguised as a personality quiz, one of those, what type of sandwich are you? Things that people actually click on.
Wait, what? People fell for that?
Sadly, yes. Around 207,000 users consented to sharing their data, not realizing that the app also collected data from their friends. Thanks to Facebook's policies at the time, this meant tens of millions of profiles were exposed, up to 87 million.
87 million? That's wild. It's like you think you're just sharing what Hogwarts house you belong to, and suddenly your private messages are up for grabs. How was that even allowed?
The Open Graph API, Facebook's framework back then, was a bit, generous. Developers could collect data from users and their networks unless those users specifically opted out, and most people didn't even know opting out was a thing.
That's infuriating. But here's what I don't get. Did their big data scheme actually work? Like, did the psychographic stuff actually sway votes?
That's the big question. Cambridge Analytica claimed their methods were revolutionary, but their results weren't really backed by hard evidence. It seems much of their marketing was about selling this image of cutting-edge influence like a magician hyping their act. Spectacular on paper, not so much in execution.
So it wasn't just unethical, it was overblown sabotage. Brilliant. But that doesn't make the data harvesting any less creepy. You've worked with tech giants. What's the vibe on data privacy after all this?
Honestly, it's shifted. The scandal was a wake-up call. Companies are investing more in safeguarding data, partly because of fear of backlash or regulation, but the reality is the tools to misuse data haven't gone away. The responsibility falls on developers, regulators, and critically, users to all stay vigilant.
Yeah, but users shouldn't have to be cybersecurity pros to protect their data. The system feels rigged, and Cambridge Analytica, they exploited it to the max.
Precisely. Their marketing of psychographic precision aside, the true scandal was the sheer audacity of how they harvested and used that data. It exposed deep flaws in how platforms like Facebook managed user information, and the aftermath shook the industry to its core.
So, Andrew, we've talked about how Cambridge Analytica exploited data and shook the industry up. But here's the thing. What about the core of their pitch? This so-called psychographic precision that could supposedly sway elections. Was it really the game changer they made it out to be?
That's what they wanted people to believe, yeah. But most of it was marketing hype. Their methods? Pretty mundane stuff. The UK Information Commissioner's Office literally called them off-the-shelf analytical tools. Nothing groundbreaking.
Wait, so all that noise about them and they were just a regular run-of-the-mill ad agency with good PR?
Essentially, yes. I mean, internally, even their own staff questioned the accuracy of their processes and the bold claims their leadership was making publicly. Turns out the revolutionary part was mostly in their storytelling, not their tech.
Love that. Revolutionary storytelling. But okay, did anyone buy their story? Beyond the obvious clients like political campaigns?
Tons of people bought it. That's part of what made their claims so effective. They created this mystique that they had unlocked voter psychology like it was some kind of cheat code. Reality. Most experts in the field called their methods wildly exaggerated. There's very little evidence their psychographics even worked at the scale they claimed.
So we're talking about an emperor has no clothes situation here. But let's not forget the data misuse. That was real. And seriously sketchy, right?
Oh, absolutely. What happened behind the scenes was far more troubling. Remember, their big data haul came from exploiting Facebook's Open Graph API, tens of millions of profile details harvested without proper consent. And that's not just sketchy, it's downright unethical.
87 million profiles, right? That number still blows my mind. And they snuck in through the back door, calling it innovation. It's like they oversold their tech, but the damage, that was very real.
Exactly. The scandal exposed a huge gap in tech platform accountability. The psychographics were overhyped, but the way they got that data, it was a wake-up call for everyone, especially lawmakers and tech companies.
And yet here we are, still wondering how much really changed after all this. Regulators came in swinging, right? GDPR and all that. So Andrew, we ended on how the Cambridge Analytica scandal served as this huge wake-up call for lawmakers and tech companies. But here's the big question. With all those exposed cracks in the system, data privacy, platform accountability and more, did the tech world actually learn from it? Or are we still stuck repeating the same mistakes?
In some ways, yes. The scandal forced companies to reassess their data policies. Facebook, for example, had to overhaul its API structure. Governments stepped in too. The GDPR in Europe was a direct response to vulnerabilities like this. It's one of the strongest data privacy laws we've seen.
Yeah, GDPR, privacy pop-ups on every single website. Love those. But seriously, it raised the bar, right? At least in theory.
In theory, absolutely. GDPR set global standards for transparency and consent, like making sure users know exactly how their data is being used. But enforcement, that's where things get tricky. Not every country has the same muscle behind their regulations, and some platforms still look for loopholes.
Shocker. Big tech cutting corners? Never heard of that. But beyond laws and fines, how about the human side? Do you think people are more savvy now? Like, has all this drama made us better digital citizens?
A bit, yes. The Cambridge Analytica scandal was a wake-up call. It put terms like data privacy into everyday conversations. People are more cautious, reading permissions, using ad blockers, limiting what they share, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, for sure. I still see folks oversharing, clicking sketchy quiz links. It's like we're stuck in this cycle of convenience versus caution. Do we just need better media literacy, or what?
Media literacy is a big part of it, teaching people to question sources, spot manipulation, and understand algorithms. But we also need systemic change. Platforms have to take more responsibility for mitigating harm, and regulators need to enforce stricter accountability.
And governments and platforms can't just shift the blame, like, oh, well, users should know better. Come on, it's 2025. We have to figure this out.
Absolutely. It's a shared responsibility. Users, platforms, lawmakers. And while Cambridge Analytica might not have been as clever as they wanted everyone to believe, they showed us how dangerous, unchecked data practices can be. That's the real legacy here.
Yeah. And honestly, the whole thing makes me think about how we navigate this digital maze moving forward. Like today, it's social media manipulation. Tomorrow, it's AI deepfakes or whatever's next.
Exactly. The landscape is always shifting, but the lessons remain the same. Transparency, ethics, and vigilance. We've got to stay on top of it.
Well said, Andrew. All right, listeners. That wraps up this series on digital influence. But we're always open to exploring more. Got a tech or society question that's bugging you? Drop us a message and let us know.
Thanks for tuning in. It's been a fascinating dive into these critical issues. Until next time, take care and stay informed.
And don't forget, delete those sketchy apps. We'll see you next time. That wraps up another insightful conversation with Kate. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you've enjoyed our discussion. Until next time.